everybody, welcome to the Pagan Perspective. My name is Angel and I am your Friday host. Today we're going to be answering some questions about ourselves. Now before I go into the questions I'm going to answer, I want to say I'm very sorry. When I got the email with all of the June questions, there was a statement at the beginning that said, to put in your videos for people to ask you questions so we could answer them in this video, and for some reason I just skipped right over that. So I apologize for not doing my due diligence, and to make that up, if you do have questions, please leave them down below. I will do another video and put it on my personal channel with the answers to those questions. So the questions I do get on my personal channel mostly, and I've gotten a couple on the Pagan Perspective, is basically my background and how I became a witch, and what I call myself. Those are two, I guess. So I'm going to answer those, which I think will take long enough. And then one of the subs, Danny, asked me a question. Thank you very much for asking me a question. And it says, you've been on your path for a long time. Are there any changes or shifts in your spiritual belief or practice that have surprised you? So I'm going to answer that as well. So let's start out with what I call myself. I call myself an eclectic pagan witch. I also lean a lot towards Wiccan, although people may have an issue with that term that are very hardcore Wiccan, because it's a little bit more of a structured path. But for me, Wiccan is still pagan, and pagan is still fluid, and I call myself Wiccan sometimes, eclectic pagan witch mostly. Now how I came to my path, my background. Okay, sorry. I am not a hereditary witch, so I don't have experience in that aspect. Although my mom is very folk magic-y, she doesn't like to accept that. So anyways, my parents, my biological father is Roman Catholic, my mother is a Methodist, and when I was growing up they were not practicing those religions. So I had a lot of freedom and liberties to experience other religions. So I did, because religions fascinated me for a number of reasons. So throughout my life, I have studied with several groups and studied different backgrounds. When I was 15, I decided to join the Mormon Church. Now, I did a long study period before I joined the church. My mother had to okay it and all that jazz. So once I was baptized in the church, and actually even a little before that, I dove in head first. I was all about it. I was involved in Young Women's. I was part of youth conference. I even wrote a song for youth conference. I gave talks at the church. I was very, very involved. An incident happened, and it wasn't anything sexual or weird like that. It was, the people I went to church with were amazing, amazing people. However, they had a fundamental opinion that the church has that I completely and utterly disagree with. And it's a pretty big difference of opinion, and the topic is very big. So, very big is huge. So that put a big tear in my connection to the church and made me question a lot of things. Now, I'm not going to go into what that was, because I really don't want anybody to do anything or say anything to anybody that they know is Mormon or anything like that, or going to any Mormon channels and say anything. We just didn't agree. And I decided after about a year that I would just not be a part of that church anymore. It was a very difficult decision, but I felt like I needed to be true to myself and what I believed to be true to me. So I left the church. And I kind of floundered for a little while. And when I was 17, a friend of mine and I had watched this show on fortune telling and gypsies, and we were like, hey, let's learn to read tarot cards. Let's get some tarot cards. And so we went to the store and bought tarot cards. And while I was looking for the book to teach us how to play the tarot cards, because I did not know there was a little booklet in it, not that those are overly helpful anyways, but I ended up finding this one book, which metaphorically leaped out at me, called Power of the Witch by Lori Cabot. And I picked up the book, and I felt like I had to buy it, so I did. It's not a particularly big book. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Don't know. Rearranged. Oh, here it is. It's a little raggedy. I'm not sure what it looks like now. This is an older copy. 89. Yeah, 89. It is not a huge book. It's got about 280 something pages. 90 something pages, 290 something pages. But I read it 3 times in a week. I couldn't put it down. I've read it many times since then, and it spoke to a part of my heart and my soul that was waiting for that information to wake up. It felt so true to me and so right to me that it was an undeniable thing. It's kind of like when you, at least for me, there's very few things in my life that I just know are right. I know I'm right about it. This I knew I was right about to my very core. And I've never looked back or regretted it. When I read this book, then I started looking for other information I could find. Now, this is before the internet exploded, which makes me sound really old. This is before... Turn down that. The bookstores did not carry a lot of pagan books like they do now. I think there was 2 shelves, and UFOs were mixed in with ghosts, and UFOs were mixed in, I think. But I tried to get my hands on anything I could. Now, I started just doing things off intuition, and I started doing a lot of like meditation and things like that to try to connect with something. I wasn't sure what. And then in like 91, AOL exploded, and that's when we got the internet, and I started, exploring different whatever sites there were, and I started meeting people and learning about things, and it went on from there. Now, in 2001 or 2, I had been practicing for quite a while by myself, and I decided that it was time for me to join a coven. And it was amazing for a little while. And then things happened that were not okay. People got very weird about things, and I don't really understand what happened, but it was not healthy, and I asked to be released. That was so incredibly damaging to me that I didn't practice for over a year, anything. I didn't have a desire. I didn't want to even think about it. Didn't look at my books. I didn't touch anything. And I swore I would never join a coven again, which you should never say never. So then after my year hiatus, I picked up a book here and there, and I started getting back into things and feeling it again. And I still had no intention of being in a coven. I just wanted to meet people and hang out with people occasionally and just be around other like-minded people. So, and I moved around a lot, so it was really hard to connect with people. I've lived in California, Washington State, Mississippi, and now I live in Massachusetts. So, bopped around there and pretty much solitaire. And then I moved to Mass, and I live in the country, but not far from the city, which is kind of weird. And ironically, I just couldn't connect with any people like me. And I thought, of all places, this would be so open-minded. So it took me like 3 years to connect with people. And during that time, I started to post videos on YouTube. And I auditioned for the Pagan Perspective and became a substitute. And then I started meeting people, and then I met a coven that my intention was just to be a study group, but ended up joining a coven of amazing people, and it's been going better than I could imagine it could be. So, that is a really quick trip on how I became who I am today. And it's basically, I picked up a book. I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been any book. Maybe it had to be this book. I don't know. All I know is when I picked up this book and I read it, it changed my entire life. It opened my eyes and it said, "You're home." Which I know is so cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. So, now, the question from Danny, are there any changes or shifts in your spiritual belief or practice that have surprised you? It surprised me I wanted to be in a coven again, or that I joined a coven again. That was pretty surprising, but it's been incredibly eye-opening, and I've learned so much, more than I thought I could learn, or that I would have been able to learn on my own, I should say. It was surprising to me that Isis was my goddess, because I tried really hard in the beginning for her not to be, because I thought she was too commercial. That surprised me, and it surprised me because and it took me a while to understand our connection, because at first I thought, there's nothing like. I don't know what this is about. I think that there's two other things that are surprising for me. I wasn't a particularly shy person before, but I was not confident at all. I was not confident. I was flaky, I guess. I didn't want to make a commitment to anything because it might be the wrong thing. Just had no confidence, really. Being on this path and learning personal responsibility and a personal commitment and connection to everything has completely surprised me, and how I've become a much more confident person, a much more caring person, a much more open-minded person. That's been very surprising to me. It's a happy accident, or maybe not an accident, but a happy, what do you call it? Something wonderful came out of that I wasn't expecting. I think the other thing that really surprised me is I've always been a person who practices, and I go big. Like, I'm talking, I go big and glammed out. You know, when I did Ostara, I would get little baby chicks and eggs and fairies everywhere, fairy cloth, fairy everything, all kinds of, I mean, I had a big old altar. I would just go out of control. I loved it. I still love it. I just don't do it anymore. I have passed on a lot of things that I used to use in my practice that I just felt I didn't need anymore. I think I built that big altar with all of that items on it because it was like when I did my magic, I was in this world. That was my magic world. What I realized, which was surprising, and I didn't realize this until I started thinking about it when I was downsizing things, as I started to get to a place where I was building that world within myself, within my mind, and I really didn't need all of that stuff anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I love big altars that have everything on it that you feel connects you, like, you know, or for things, whatever. I mean, altars are beautiful, beautiful, no matter what they look like. So that's been really surprising for me, is that I've been really streamlining my practice and simplifying it. In the physical world. I think in the spiritual world, I'm still, you know, all glammed out, you know, but in the physical world, I don't need, I'm in a place right now where I don't need a lot of visual stimulation to get into a place where I feel I'm in my magic world. So that's been probably the biggest surprise for me, is that, because I have always been a huge altar, huge, you know, I've always loved that, and it's always felt like home. I'm not saying I won't ever do it again, and I may do it from time to time, but for the most part, my altar, when I do altars for spells or what have you, is pretty simple. Now I have an altar to my god and goddess that's pretty packed with stuff, in my opinion, and I'll put a picture down at the end. I've done a tour of my old altar to my god and goddess before on my personal channel, which also I will put a link down below to that video. But for the most part, that's the only altar I have that I have up all the time. When I do any rituals or anything at home, I do a temporary altar. And that's also a big surprise, because I always had like 2 or 3 or 4 altars around the house. One was to my god and goddess, one was more of a offering to, I still have one for Buddha, one to the fairies, and then I have an actual working altar. So that would probably be one of the biggest things, is that I've downsized and streamlined my practice exponentially from when I started. So thank you, Danny, for asking that question. Thank you everyone who's asked me about my path before. I'm really glad I got to answer it, because I've been wanting to, but I wasn't sure, you know, how I should answer it, and sometimes I overthink things, so I decided just to go for it, so I did. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate the wonderful comments. I get some of the best compliments from people and comments from people, and it means a lot to me. Even if I don't comment back, it means so much to me, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for being viewers of Pagan Perspective. And yeah, so until next time, everybody have a great weekend, and blessed be. Bye.